A lot of people who bought homes over the past few years thought they were making a really smart financial decision because they had FOMO, the fear of missing out, the fear of wondering, am I ever going to be able to buy a house if I don't buy one now? And fast forward 2 or 3 years later, now that a lot of people made that decision, it's really coming back to haunt a lot of people. You're seeing countless stories of buyer's remorse and regrets that a lot of people have. And today I want to highlight a story about how buying with FOMO and buying with a mortgage rate buy down is really coming back to bite a lot of people in the butt. But before we get into that story, let's take a look at this listing right here. You can't really see the house, but you can see its nice, long, beautiful driveway. And take a look at the history of this property. It's kind of laughable. This property was sold back in 2021 during the frenzy for 8.87 million. Then the person turned around, listed it for sale already at a loss, already at a $600,000 loss, right? And then they finally sold it for 6.25 million. So the prior owner of this home literally lost over $2 million on the sale of this property. And in 2024, when it was purchased again, of course, the next owner turned around and is trying to do the same thing and flip it. And they've already had to cut the price by $500,000. And now they're only about 900,000 above where they bought the property for last year. And this just goes to show you that some people just never learn, right? Like this person bought it from a flipper who lost a bunch of money, and they came in thinking that, well, that's not going to happen to me. I'm going to be the one who makes money. Well, so far, they're not the one making money. That place has been listed for sale since June, and we are now in September, and they have a major price cut, and the house isn't sold. If they do get lucky enough to sell it, it's probably going to be at a substantially lower price than what it's listed at right now. And they might get lucky enough to make a small profit, but luck is going to be the word. Because how many people in this world can afford a $6.5 or $7 million house? And even if they sell it for $6.5 million, which is more than what they paid for that house, they are going to probably be still selling for a loss after paying all of the real estate commissions and all of the closing costs and fees associated with selling a home. Anyways, let's go back to mortgage rate buy downs and the problems that this has created in the housing market. Back in 2019, this guy in Colorado, he bought his first home in Denver for $324,000. He refinanced the property during the pandemic to lock in super low mortgage rates, and then the home value surged, and by 2024, he sold that place with a $150,000 profit. Not too bad, right? A lot of people who were just in the right place at the right time got lucky and made some deals like that. So what did he do? He rolled over that $150,000 in profit that he made, and he bought a brand new $800,000 house, like new construction. But the dream didn't last long, because after buying this house, him and his wife quickly realized a lot of the issues with the property. The biggest one was the location. Now he had a huge commute on his hands every single day, going to and from work, even just leaving the house to go get groceries or any sort of store. He was looking at like a half an hour drive to go anywhere. On top of that, since it's new construction, the entire neighborhood was still kind of a messy construction zone. If you've ever been to a new construction site, you see roads that are still unpaved and halfway done, lots of yards that are unfinished, lots of debris everywhere, of course, construction crews and noise, things like that. Until everything is fully finished, it can be kind of a nightmare. So literally within just a few months, this guy and his wife were already looking at selling the house. They were already talking about it. And this is when they started seeing the reality that maybe they didn't make the best deal. Because one of the reasons they were able to buy the house at the time is because of a mortgage rate buy down. And now a lot of people who bought homes with mortgage rate buy downs are starting to either have to list their homes for sale because now the cost of owning the home and the payments have gone up too high, or have buyer's remorse like this guy because they just bought the wrong property. And in case you don't know what a mortgage rate buy down is, it's where the seller, in many cases the home builder, will give you a temporary mortgage rate. Just take a look at the chart on the screen. You can see how this typically works. In the first year, You might have something like a 4.5% rate. The second year could be a 5.5% rate. And then year three, after it expires, then you're back up to market rate, which is about 6.5% right now. And there's different variations of this. Some of them were 3 or 4 years, and the starting point might have been even lower. Some people started out with a 3% mortgage rate with the buy downs when they first started them. So when this couple bought their home, the builder sweetened the deal and gave them a $30,000 worth of incentives to buy the home, including a mortgage rate buy down. And of course, this is a very common tactic that home builders use. Rather than lowering the price of the home, they will give you a mortgage rate buy down. But the problem is, whenever the buy down actually expires, if the homeowner wants to sell, like in the case of this couple, you can't transfer your artificially low interest rate to the new owner. And that leaves a lot of people who accepted these buy downs and now have buyer's remorse with a major dilemma on their hands. A lot of people were promised the age-old lie in real estate who bought into this, that, oh, don't worry, you just buy now and refinance later. That's a common term for that, is you marry the house and date the rate. And all of the real estate agents back then were promising that that was going to be possible. I don't know how they could promise anything like that, because nobody's a fortune teller. Nobody knows what the future holds. But somehow they were able to make those promises that they weren't able to keep. Check out the view from up here, guys. By the way, I'm walking down Mount Tiburon Boulevard here in Tiburon, California. Got views of San Francisco and San Francisco Bay, Belvedere Island, the fog, the Golden Gate Bridge, Sausalito. You can see it all from up here. Gorgeous. But here's the problem. Many of the homeowners who took the buy downs back in 2021 and 2022 and 2023 are now facing the reality that mortgage rates are still hovering at 6.5%, and the dream of refinancing isn't happening, which is what they were all promised. And some people like to blame real estate agents and say, well, it's all their fault because they were promising that you could refinance and people bought based on that promise. But really, if you're that gullible and naive to think that just based on what someone else says or where interest rates are going to be in 3 or 4 years, it's kind of really stupid, guys, because nobody really knows. Why would you put the largest purchase that you're ever going to make in the hands of some ridiculous prediction that nobody knows if it will actually come true or not? And now the problem is, a lot of these homes are going to be coming back onto the market, just like this one. Rick Palacios Jr., who's the director of research at John Burns Research and Consulting, he said that people are going to start putting these homes back on the market, and I think it's going to be a bit of a shock to them what they have to reprice it at. And that's exactly what happened to this couple in Colorado. They decided to list their home for sale. Remember, they bought it for $800,000. They decided to list it for $850,000. No offers, nothing was happening. Eventually, they dropped the price back down to $800,000, the same price that they paid for the property. And on top of that, the buyer demanded a $40,000 buy down to match the other deals from the builder down the street. And so they had no choice but to agree if they wanted to sell. And in the end, all the money that was gained from the very first sale, that $150,000, was gone. And get this, his real estate agent even chipped in a small piece of her commission, like $350, just to close the deal. And now today, him and his wife are back renting in an apartment trying to regroup. So these guys got a major windfall, $150,000 during the pandemic, thought they were going to be smart, buy this new construction house, and escaped that deal, and basically lost everything, guys. Because imagine, you might say, well, that's not too bad of a loss because they were able to sell at the same price that they bought it at. Remember, they had a $50,000 buy down. They have real estate commissions. They have closing costs, transfer taxes, all different sorts of things you have to pay when you sell, plus the maintenance and property taxes and insurance that they had on the home during the time they owned it. And so they're basically broke now. Now they're living in an apartment renting again. They literally had the chance. They literally had an opportunity with that $150,000, and they blew it. And you know how they blew it? Because instead of taking that 150 grand and investing it into something like gold and silver, or maybe the stock market, they said, no, we're going to buy a primary residence and basically buy the most expensive thing that we can afford. And that's going to be the best idea because real estate just goes up forever. That's what everybody was thinking 2 or 3 years ago. And now, fast forward 3 years later, everybody's learning the hard way that that is simply not the case. And the thing is, this story is not unique because builders use buy downs to keep the sales moving along without slashing prices over that frenzy. And those deals now have left many people overpaying for homes in order to get in because they paid a higher price rather than getting a lower price and having no buy down, right? And they bet on a future where mortgage rates would drop, but that hasn't transpired either. And now that more of these homes are hitting the market, these sellers are realizing that they might not be able to sell without taking a loss. Wow. Who could have predicted that? Who was talking about that before this stuff actually even happened? I don't know who. You guys can take a guess. Somebody out there must have been talking about it. In fact, so many home buyers were offered mortgage rate buy downs that in December of 2022, according to John Burns Research and Consulting, about 75% of home builders were offering mortgage rate buy downs by the end of 2022. And they were doing that in lieu of lowering prices. Nowadays, they're doing both. But back then, they didn't have to lower prices because if you don't remember, it was an absolute frenzy on the market. And the other trick that these home builders use in order to get people to do this is not only would they offer an artificially low rate, but they would also say that the only way to get this rate is you have to use our in-house lender. And so they were able to get a little bit of money back on that side of the deal, on the lending side of things. And without this maneuver, a lot of home builders probably would have went out of business over the past 2 or 3 years. And the reality is, too many people bought homes during this time frame out of FOMO and trying to afford a lifestyle that they really couldn't, like the example couple we just talked about. And since residential real estate is so emotional, most people buy because they just love the house, right? And they find out like that's the one. They see the property like, okay, this is it. Let's move on it. And then they kind of worry about the consequences of it later on. Once they realize they don't like the property, they're kind of stuck in a situation just like these people were. Even according to Zillow, about 45% of home buyers who purchased a home in the last year have a mortgage rate below 5%, which means they have some form of a buy down because mortgage rates haven't been below 5% in a very long time, which means that all those people, almost half, have mortgage rates that are artificially low that are going to continue to go up, which means the cost of them owning that property is also going to go up. And a lot of people are not going to be able to afford it and are going to be listing that home for sale, probably at a loss, just like the couple in this story. And like I've told you guys countless times before, one of the biggest problems with the mortgage rate buy down is even though at the time you qualify for the loan, you can technically afford the highest payment that you're going to have, the problem is that you have 2 or 3 or 4 years between the time you buy the house and the time your payment reaches its maximum amount to give you lifestyle creep, to have lifestyle inflation, to bring on more expenses and take on more debt and have more things to pay for in the meantime. You might say, hey, I'm saving an extra $500-600 a month because of this mortgage rate buy down. That's enough for me to go and buy a new car. That's enough for us to take that vacation to Italy that we've always wanted to do and put it on the credit card. You know what I mean? And this also shows you just how fast the housing market can turn around. Just look at that example back there at the beginning of this video, guys. Like, house purchased in 2021 for almost 9 million, and now they're down to 7 million. And that's just within a span of a few years, and the price is probably going to be lower by the time it sells. All these people who bought homes that are going to have to sell for less than they purchased it for. So everybody just kind of made a deal with the devil, who said, okay, I'll pay a higher price in exchange for an artificially low mortgage rate. And now that a lot of these people want to get rid of these homes, they're simply not going to be able to turn a profit on them. Even take a look at this. An executive at KB Homes, which is one of the nation's largest home builders, on an earnings call recently said that many customers are overpaying for homes that offer these incentives, suggesting that they could have a harder time clearing a profit in the future. They're tied into this higher price that they're going to be stuck with forever until they sell that home. And what have I always said on this channel? The price is the one thing that you can never change when you purchase a house. You can always change the interest rate later on. You can change the walls, you can change the floors, you can redecorate, you can re-landscape the yard, but you can never change how much you paid for the house. And they also talked to a mortgage lender who used to work for a home builder for this story, and he says that he's hearing more and more stories of buyer's remorse these days. And he said that builders could keep their listing prices higher while passing along savings to buyers in the form of lower monthly payments. But if one of those buyers is trying to sell now, they'll likely be competing against the same builder who sold them their home, only the builder has been steadily lowering prices or layering on new incentives. That means homeowners often cannot resell for what they originally paid. At the end of May, for example, the home builder Lennar said its average incentive per home had stretched to nearly $60,000, up from $44,000 just 1 year ago. So the lesson here is simple. Incentives like mortgage rate buydowns can look like free money at the time, but they come with strings attached, guys. If you're not planning to stay in a home for at least 5 to 7 years, then this deal might end up costing you everything that you think you're gaining from it. This story is the perfect example. Now, I want to show you guys how real estate agents are tricking the average home buyer today into believing that the market is stronger than it really is. Let's take this mid-year market report from a local real estate agent here in Tiburon, California, and break this down. And you could probably look at any similar market report that you might receive from your local real estate agent and spot a lot of the same things I'm about to show you. So it says here that 48 homes have sold so far this year in Tiburon, and the average sales price is almost 4.2 million versus the 3.5 million back in the second quarter of 2024. So they're trying to make it look like prices here are soaring, right? And how are they able to do this? Well, this is just simple math and manipulation, guys, because let's look at the rest of this report to show you what I mean. The average square foot selling price is actually down because it's $1,256 a square foot versus $1,263 a square foot during the same time frame last year. But if we move over to the right-hand side of the chart and we look at the price range of the homes that have been selling, this tells you the picture of what's really going on. You can see that on the low end, which is funny to say, but yeah, the low end here is 1 million to 2 million. The number of homes sold is only 4. But then if you keep going down the list, what do you notice? Vast majority of the homes sold here in Tiburon are in the much higher price range. In fact, the highest amount of homes sold was in the $3 to $4 million price range at 14 sold. You had 9 sold between 2 and 3 million. You had 8 sold between 4 and 5 million. 10 of them sold between 5 and 7 million. Even 3 homes sold for over $7 million, and only 4 of them sold between 1 and 2 million. So that's why the average sales price is up as high as it is. First of all, they're not using the median sales price, because if you actually use the median sales price, these gains will not be as significant. It wouldn't be from 3.5 million to 4.2 million. And if we pull up the Reventure app, we can see that in this zip code where I'm at right now, 94920, is actually down 3.6% year over year when looking at median home prices. So you can see there is lots of trickery going on here with these housing market reports that real estate agents send out. They send you this report to make you believe like, whoa, look at that. Home prices went from 3.5 million to 4.2 in 1 year in the area. That's insane. But what really happened is that's the average sales price. And since so many of the homes sold were well over $3 or $4 million, of course that's enough to bring the average sales price up. And those are the only people who are buying. The ultra wealthy who can still afford to pay these exorbitant prices. And that's about it. You can see on the low end, nobody's buying. And it's not because Tiburon doesn't have homes for sale between $1 and $2 million. They do, but people can't afford them. And then of course they put all these other dumb stats on there, like 31% of homes sold for over asking price. The average amount sold over asking price was 6% over asking. 23% of homes received multiple offers. But if you look, a year ago, 40% received multiple offers, right? So there's a lot of data manipulation going on here in these reports that you receive from real estate agents, and it's all designed to either get you to buy a property or to list a property for sale with them. So next time you get one of these reports in the mail from the real estate agent, go back and watch this video and remember what I said and take a look at what the report actually shows you and see if they're trying to really show you the true picture of what's going on in the market, or they're just showing you what they want you to see in order to get you to buy or sell with them. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.